Hey y'all, welcome. We are so excited you're here. Welcome to FernLeaf's middle grades virtual open house. Yes, we are so glad you're here. My name's Nicole Rule, and I am the communications and marketing coordinator, and I am going to be the MC of today. And we just want to get a little bit of business out of the way before we start with the programming. So I'm the one who is probably emailing you, communicating with you that way. I do all the emails, and I can answer any questions that way. If you have any like really specific questions that you feel like can't be answered in the open house, please send them to me through email. And I manage the website. So no matter how I do the social media, so you can direct message me anything, any way to get your question answered. I am there for you. So thank you for being here tonight. We are so psyched to talk about our middle grades program, which is a program that doesn't get, a lot of hype, even though I think it is so incredible and such a special place for middle school kids and kids in that phase of life, which we're going to talk a lot about today. So I don't want to spoil too much. Like I said, I'm Nicole Rule. I'm the marketing and communications coordinator. So I'm likely the one that you're communicating with most of the time. So if you have any questions, need anything, please reach out through Instagram, through Facebook messaging. You can email me at nicole.rule@fernleafccs.org. I'm psyched to hear from you. I love talking to prospective families. And as you'll see throughout this presentation, we have so many of us who are not only staff who work at FernLeaf, but we are also parents. And I am a parent of 4 children currently at FernLeaf. We have been with FernLeaf since their first year open, which is a long time ago now. It's about 5 years ago now that they have been open. So my oldest was in 2nd grade when we started, and my second oldest was in kindergarten. And then my other 2 have come up. They didn't even start. They were like little tiny babies when we started. So so we've been here a long time, and I just adore FernLeaf. And my oldest is now in 6th grade, so he is in the middle school program. So I have a lot of beautiful things to say about how FernLeaf kind of brings kids up, and then how they are treated in middle grades, which you will hear about today. So I'm excited for you. So I want to get started by talking about the schedule of events, what we will talk about tonight. So clearly we'll do a little welcome. We're going to start by talking to our school counselor. His name's Brian Gillette. So he's going to start us off talking about our mission, and also the social emotional learning that happens and mindfulness that happens here at FernLeaf. Then we'll move on to Michael Luplow, who's our executive director. He's going to talk about a lot about the philosophy and the education and academics that happens at FernLeaf. Then we'll move on to Lauren and Vic, who are actually middle grades teachers right now at FernLeaf and have been. And so they're going to give you an overview of what it actually looks like a day in the life of a middle grade student. Then we'll move on to Molly Luplow, who is another director of ours at FernLeaf, and she is going to kind of clean it up with like the logistics of school, like what it kind of looks like to be a FernLeaf student, not a day in the life, but more like what are the logistics. So she'll talk about like athletics, that kind of stuff, like what are the other things that happen. And then we'll do our Q&A session, and then we'll wrap it up. So thank you so much for being here. Let's move on. You've heard enough from me, so let's talk to Brian Gillette, who is our school counselor. He's just an incredible human, so I cannot wait for you to get started listening to him. So take it away, Brian.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm really, really pleased you've all joined us this evening to learn more about our school. As Nicole was hinting, many of us are parents, FernLeaf parents. So I'm not only the school counselor, I'm also a FernLeaf parent. And, I can remember the first time I walked in the building with my son, who hid behind me the whole time and would barely speak to anyone. And now he's would enter any room and just like, what's up? And can I tell you about dinosaurs or the Titanic or about mindfulness and the list goes on and on and on. And so FernLeaf has made a huge difference in the life of my family and many, many others. So what I'd like to do is start off the evening in the same way we start off every meeting at FernLeaf, and that's by reading our school's mission. So FernLeaf's mission is to foster a rich learning environment that embodies the essence of community, understanding, and the human spirit. Grounded in humble respect for our surroundings, the individual, and the world as a whole, we seek to engage the unique passions and aptitudes of our school community so that in addition to achieving academic fluency, students become thoughtful, compassionate, and engaged. Well, our mission is much more than just a statement we throw up on our website. It's actually a living document we work hard to embody every single day at FernLeaf. Our mission drives our weekly staff meetings and creates powerful dialogue opportunities among our students. We take time to reflect on phrases like community, understanding, and the human spirit. We explore the themes of compassion and respect, and we prioritize helping students identify their own unique passions and aptitudes. In short, our mission drives everything that we do, including our social and emotional focus. So social emotional learning permeates our entire community life, but we begin with a simple premise. Our school staff model self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, and pro-social behaviors, all pillars of social emotional learning, through our example, well before we expect the same from our students. And this shouldn't be considered a top-down approach. We simply recognize that it's developmentally appropriate for adults to model the behaviors we expect to see, all within a remarkably democratic process. Secondly, we create formal and informal opportunities to explore the themes of self-awareness, responsible decision-making, pro-social behaviors, etc., with our students. Those informal opportunities happen all over campus, everywhere, outside, in the hallways, everywhere. Whereas the more formal opportunities happen most often in our daily morning meetings. Those are really special times. Daily mindfulness practices, in school counseling lessons, in small counseling groups, and through one-on-one counseling support. As we move through tonight's presentations, I invite you to take special notice of the ways in which student wellness shares center stage with academic excellence. I've been in education for over 20 years, and I've never worked in a community that makes such a heavy investment in this important work. Now, I'd like to hand things over to one of our school directors and FernLeaf founder, Michael Luplow. There's so much that I'd want to say about Michael as a personal friend, as a visionary, as an educator, as a school leader. But what I really want you to take special notice tonight is Michael's student-centered approach to providing compassionate, high-quality educational experiences for young people. Michael, take it away.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for that very warm introduction. I appreciate the kind words. I also appreciate you sharing so much of a little bit of your own program, as well as our emphasis on social and emotional learning. That is something that will permeate through our entire conversation this evening, and I hope that we are able to give you a great picture of how we're able to balance that along with high quality academics, as well as just the need for school to be a very welcoming, warm place that's fun for kids to be at. And I would love to share with you some of the philosophical underpinnings that kind of set the stage for everything at FernLeaf. And I wish I could tell you that these were these incredibly deep and complex concepts and ideas, but they're really not. They're very simple, and they're very basic, and I think you'll be able to relate to all of them very well, but they drive everything we do. And Brian talked about our mission driving everything we do, and I think you'll see how a lot of the things I'm about to share weave tightly into some of those key facets of our mission that you heard while he read that to you. First and foremost is that at all grade levels, whether you are talking about a new to FernLeaf kindergartner, a new to FernLeaf 7th grader, or a future senior in high school, we believe that all kids are innately creative, curious, and imaginative. And you are a parent, so you know this to be true. I say this all the time, they come out of the womb this way, right? We are hardwired to learn during these first many years of our lives. And I just want you to know that we take our responsibility for that very, very seriously. It is our job to preserve the curiosity, our job to make sure that their imagination flourishes, and our job to make sure that we help them discover their creative strengths. And I will tell you, as another member of the 2+ decade in public education club with Brian here, schools all too often have a habit of sucking some of those things out of us. They just do. And FernLeaf works really hard to not let that happen. Another important belief of ours is that learning can and should be fun. And again, at all grade levels, right? A lot of schools take the approach that when you come in for kindergarten, it should be this wonderful, warm experience with lots of fun, but we like to translate that out over the course of the K-12 experience. And there's no reason not to. And we'll talk a little bit about how that happens, but we work really hard to make sure that the child's experience at school is fun. Part of the way that we do that is rooted in another belief that we know, not just believe, that children learn best through doing. And I would venture a guess that this is true not just for all kids, because we know it is also true for us as adults. If you've ever been in a college lecture class, you know that sometimes you can take in some important information, and that's great, but it's one piece of the puzzle. And getting your hands dirty and getting engaged with the material is the way that you really, really connect with the material and are able to use it in meaningful ways. And speaking of using material in meaningful ways, we also believe that strong academics really can, and I will say must, be balanced with a more holistic approach to educating the whole child. And that's where what Brian was talking about with social and emotional learning factors in. And as I begin to talk about some of our teachers and you get to know some of them tonight, you will get to see that that is a cornerstone of what we are about at FernLeaf. To support that, we believe that a healthy and supportive school culture is something that has to be intentionally cultivated. I have worked in many schools around the country, all different grade levels, and very often we treat culture as this secondary thing, that what we are really there for is academics and all of the other things are just secondary. And we work really hard to strike that balance and make sure that we bring everything into play. And when you focus on your culture and you make it a great place for kids to learn and grow, and you make it a wonderful place for your staff to work, and you make it an incredible community for your families to be a part of, that transforms the entire school experience for everyone involved. And to that end, we know that children's, and I will say also parents' lives are enhanced when you feel connected to the school community, when you feel connected to something greater than yourselves. And we work really hard to make sure that everybody, even when we've been working remotely over the last year, that everyone feels connected. And you can probably even see that through the nature and the tone and the tenor of this presentation for you tonight. It permeates even through the screen. We can't do this through the screen, although we did encourage a lot of our kids to do this, but we believe that spending time outdoors is important, not just for the sake of getting outside and playing, but also for all of the other benefits that go along with it. Some are scientific, some are just anecdotal. But We know that humans thrive when they have access to the outdoors, to the sunshine, to the wind, to the rain. And we also want children to experience mild discomfort, I will say sometimes, by accessing all different facets of the weather. I am quoted regularly as saying that FernLeaf is the U.S. Postal Service of public education, because your children will go outside, even as 6th, 7th, 8th, and 12th graders, they will go outside every single day. And we are not afraid to let them get wet. We're not afraid to let them be cold momentarily. It's an important part of what we do. We also believe at the end of the day, your children, nor our teachers, and nor our school as a whole are defined by test scores. We are a North Carolina public charter school that uses the North Carolina Standard Course of Study as our foundation for the curriculum that we teach. But tests are just one important measure of a student's success at school. And I don't have an example to show you right now, but our progress reviews are a great example of this. Yes, they include all of the academic standards, the things that need to be taught. It's important that you know that your child is being taught and has access to all of these rich academic standards. But it is also important that you know how they are doing as a community member. It's also important that you know how they're regulating their emotions when they're at school. I have children. I know that I'm very grateful that my children regulate their emotions better at school than they do with me at home. And it's important that that information gets transmitted. And so, like I said, test scores are important, but they're one part of the puzzle. And we like to give you a broad-based, holistic perspective on your child's experience. And at the end of the day, no matter what I say about our school, and no matter what you see on our website, and no matter what you hear tonight, there is one thing that makes the difference in the lives of kids when they go to school every day, and that is the quality of their teachers. And in a little bit here, I'm going to hand it off to some of our teachers, and you're going to get a sense of who they are and what that means. But never in my 2+ decades in public education have I ever seen so many high quality, committed, deeply intelligent, thoughtful, compassionate teachers under one roof as I have here at FernLeaf. It is amazing. You'll get this sense just by listening to them talk. I have just a couple more things that I want to share, and then I'll hand it over to the teachers, I promise. But when we first started planning and developing FernLeaf, and it's important to know that FernLeaf didn't just happen one day. It is the product of decades of work. People ask me all the time, like, when did you first get the idea for for FernLeaf? And I joke and say it is in kindergarten, or actually it was in preschool, because of a couple of experiences I had early on that helped me to become what I refer to as a loving but staunch critic of public education. And it has shaped my views and my philosophies about what we can do in school. So when we first began developing it, we intentionally chose a small, compassionate, and what at that time in our planning was a K-8 model dedicated to providing students with engaging, hands-on, and experiential learning opportunities. Now, it's important that you get that word in there, compassionate. It's important that you get engaging and hands-on out of that. And we revised all of this to K-12 later, but the impetus for the K-8 approach was really about turning the traditional middle school model on its head. Now, most of you know this already, but when schools, typical schools, they have a handful of small elementary schools around a district that have typically a pretty good community feel to them. And then when they get to middle school, we for some reason just decide that it's okay to throw 900 or 1,000 kids who don't know each other into a big sea together at one of the most transformative moments in their life, when their bodies and their brains and their souls are undergoing some of the most dramatic changes at any other time in life. And we kind of just hope for the best. And we throw them into that environment where they don't know the teachers. They don't have these long-standing relationships. And so we really, really, really wanted to make sure that we were there to be that rock for them when they needed us. And so the typical middle schools, like I said, have 600 to 1,000 kids. FernLeaf has, at our middle school program at full capacity, is about 150 kids. This is 80% smaller than your traditional middle school. Okay, that's a big deal, and it makes a big, big difference. Our elementary program, if you happen to have younger kids too, is about half the size of the average elementary school in the area. And that is another really important part of why FernLeaf exists, because those larger schools can often be cold and institutional, even though there's very often good people doing great work there. It's just the nature of creating the structure that way. So we changed the structure. We have that elementary program that feeds directly into our middle school program and then directly into our future high school program, where teachers know the kids over many, many years. I know the kids over many years. So when a kid lands in my office as a fifth grader, I know what we are talking about together in first and second grade. It's not out of the blue. And so we have a relationship, and that matters. So, like I said, I could keep going on and on and on. And I know what you would really love to hear is from our teachers. And I already stressed to you the high quality teachers that we have here. And I'm very, very pleased to be able to introduce you to two of our finest. We have Vic Weasel, who is currently one of our social studies teachers in the middle grades, and Lauren Stanfield, who is our English language arts teacher right now. And they are just two of the most wonderful humans you will ever meet. And I can't wait to hear what they have to share with you tonight. Vic, Lauren?
Thank you, Michael. I'll start. As Michael said, I teach social studies currently in the middle grades. I've also taught English language arts in the middle grades. And not only, like Michael and Molly and Brian and Nicole, not only am I a FernLeaf teacher, I'm also a FernLeaf parent. I have a second, third, and sixth grader at FernLeaf. And I'm going to start by walking us through sort of a day in the life of a FernLeaf middle grade student, and then I'll hand it off to Lauren, who'll talk about some of the things that sets FernLeaf apart. Every day at FernLeaf, in every grade, but carried into the middle grades, we start the day with a community meeting. We have what's called home crews. These are multi-grade groups of students. We like that they're multi-grades because it gives our students opportunities to form relationships outside of their grade band. And this is a wonderful opportunity for students to check in with a teacher. It's a wonderful opportunity for class or grade-wide or school-wide issues to be discussed and plans of action to be formed. It's a moment to dig into some of the social emotional stuff that Brian was talking about earlier. It's also a moment, like we start every meeting with the mission. We also start every home crew meeting with a moment of mindfulness that's run by the teachers at the beginning of the year, but by the end of the year, the students are running the mindful moments that we have throughout the day. After our home crew meeting, we then transition into our academic classes. We have 4 core academics: English language arts, social studies, math, and science. We follow the North Carolina standard course of study, but we do sort of contextualize it in a very FernLeaf way. We approach it from a place of intentionality, and we intentionally build in opportunities for socializing into our schedule every day. We would like to think as parents and teachers that our students are coming to school because they're so fired up to learn that that's what they want to do, but really they come to school because they want to see their friends. Those peers in the middle school are really the most important relationships that our students have, and making opportunities for them to have legitimate time to socialize, we've found has not only really positive for the students, but it allows us to be more focused in our instructional time. We're not fighting the tide. We have a wonderful elective program at FernLeaf for our middle grade students. We have art and performing arts from kindergarten through 5th grade, but then in the middle grades, we transition to an elective model where they get to choose what they study. Those change every year depending on a wide number of factors, but currently we have a visual arts class, a performing arts class that includes songwriting and filmmaking. We have a STEM class that's focused in computer programming. And then we have a outdoor education class, which is focused in outdoor science and naturalism. It's a pretty amazing program. We also go outside every day, as Michael was saying, and that's both for structured moments and unstructured moments. It's unheard of in most middle schools for students to be given unstructured outdoor time on a daily basis, but it's such a positive and powerful thing that we prioritize that. We make sure that students get time outside every day. We eat lunch outside every day unless the weather is so bad that your food is just going to get soggy before you can actually eat it. And on the days like that, we eat quickly inside and then we transition outside for unstructured outdoor activities. But we also intentionally move outside for instruction. You know, there is no reason why classes can't be taught outside on a fairly regular basis. So that is a day in the life of a FernLeaf middle grade student in a nutshell. I'm now going to pass it off to Lauren, and she's going to talk about what makes FernLeaf amazing.
It's like the nut in the shell is what I'm going to cover. Maybe. So I'm going to focus in on two specific components of the meat of what we do at FernLeaf, our curriculum, and also the lives of our students. So the curriculum starts with, as Michael and Vic mentioned, some significantly smaller class sizes. And that is fun as a teacher to be able to really dig in with kids and get to know them on a greater level. And it's also incredibly powerful for students' education, because then we're able to really cater and tweak our instruction to the individual student. And I don't know if I have a student who is currently just doing the assignments as they're listed. I mean, almost every kid in our classes is going to have some tweak one way or another to meet their interests. And to that end, our curriculum is constantly evolving and it's constantly being developed. And so the curriculum that the middle grade students participate in is designed around their interests, and they take an active role in deciding. In English, we talk through what kinds of books that they want to read, and they choose the books that they want to read. So it's not this prepackaged curriculum that you might find at some other schools where it's week 3 and this is what we've been doing in week 3 for the past 20 years and we're going to stick with it. We really are we're really developing our lessons based around our students, both their interests and their abilities. With that said, we do base all of these lessons on the standard course of study. And there are, I backtrack for a second. There are 4 core teachers, and we also have an assistant and an EC teacher who specializes in the middle grades. So there are 6 people who are working together to create this curriculum. And it is cross-curriculum. We have a pretty good understanding of each other's standards. And so to that note of intentionality that you've heard time and time again, because it's something that's so important to our community, we will design our projects and our learning around each other's standards. So as I'm planning for ELA, it's not just my reading standards. I'm also going to try to tie in some of the things that Vic's working on in social studies, and I'm going to tie in some science articles and concepts around what our science teacher Ellie is covering. And so in that way, we're able to really multiply the amount of material that we cover over the course of a year. And along the same lines as standards, we also hold students to a consistent standard of living, of being in the classroom. And as Michael and Brian said, we try to model that as a team. Not to speak to the way other people do things too much, but I have seen, programs that are all about kids' tenacity and their motivation, and schools will take on a program to help kids be better people, but the teachers aren't taking the program themselves, and the teachers don't have the resources that they need to develop those same skills. So we're pushing a program, but we're not living it. And that is not at all, I mean, that's the exact opposite of what we are doing at FernLeaf. We as educators are given the resources that we need to develop as humans. And there is a culture of mutual respect among the staff, with each other, and also for the student as an individual. There's just an inherent respect for that person that is just critical to their learning. As Vic said, especially in these middle grade years, kids are here primarily for social motivations, and this can be a tumultuous time for kids socially. And I think here's where we really start to see the dividends that our SEL program has produced. The lessons that our students have learned, thanks to Brian and Kathleen and so many other people, really start to show up. And you have students who are not only able to identify like a source of conflict, they're able to identify their role in conflict and the other person's role in conflict and their reactions to conflict. And this is my first year at FernLeaf, and I'll have conversations with some kids and I'm like, I know adults who can't do the things that these kids are doing on a daily basis. And so to that end, as they're going through these changes, there is support from the adults across the board. Throughout the whole school. I don't think there's a kid who wouldn't feel comfortable going to any adult in the school with any issue. So they've got adult support. They have the internal support that they need. They have the skills that they need to navigate challenging situations. And they also have the empathy to support each other in those changes. They may not always like each other, but that mutual respect that has been modeled for them really starts to show up. And it is just an incredibly beautiful thing to watch. And I'm not yet a FernLeaf parent. This is what I'll end on. But my son is moving into kindergarten next year. And when my husband and I were looking at all of the different programs and all of the resources, because there's some amazing things going on in this area, I looked at my students and I thought, this is who I want. This is who I want my son to be like. These are the people I want around my child. Because this place produces some incredible kids. They're just so cool. And you guys have got to come on campus when we open back up to meet some of them, because there are some incredible kids at this school. Vic, what am I overlooking?
You're not overlooking anything, Lauren, but there is more to cover, and I'm going to dive back in. I do want to reiterate something Michael touched on earlier about small school size and how important that is. You know, the fact that a FernLeaf student can walk through any hallway in the building and be recognized by every adult and most other students is just a really powerful thing. They're seen as individuals as opposed to cogs in a giant educational machine. It is a human scaled place. Behavior management can be a really big deal in the middle grades. The middle grades are when students start to push boundaries and test what they can get away with. This is just a developmentally appropriate, normal thing. We operate on a cooperative problem-solving model for dealing with student behavior, as opposed to a punitive model. We don't give detention. We do address behavior issues. But we address them from a place of trying to figure out where the behavior is coming from and help the student identify the conflict and identify ways to solve it in an appropriate way. Our older grade students, because we are a K-8 model next year and will eventually be a K-12 model, our older students are given leadership opportunities to work with younger students, which is a really powerful and amazing tool to help develop leadership skills. It is very typical for our middle grade students to be leading small math groups or small reading groups, tutoring individual younger students, and the pride that the students take in like running their second grade or kindergarten reading groups is a pretty amazing thing to watch. FernLeaf fieldwork is an integral part of the FernLeaf experience. We do 8 field works a year. That's what other schools call field trips. We do at a minimum 8 fieldworks a year for every student, running the gamut from service work to performing arts to some sort of outdoor component, right? A fieldwork that is just based on being outside for a hike or something similar. Also, every student at FernLeaf from kindergarten up does an overnight. Of course, those are different from the kindergartners to the 8th graders. There's a big difference. We've gone to local summer camps. We've gone a little farther afield to summer camps in South Carolina. Last year, we had a group of students go on a backcountry camping trip. So overnight field work happens every year for every student. We feel like those are really important experiences. We integrate project-based learning into our educational model. So project-based learning is a way to integrate education into real-world experiences, where the students drive the learning. They choose what they want to learn and why they want to learn it, and they figure out a way to present their learning to the greater community. And once you put that piece in where they have to present their learning to the greater community, the buy-in goes up like immensely. We are currently about to start piloting an independent study program for our middle grade students. And I think great things are coming there. We have after school athletics for our 5th through 8th graders currently with the Hospitality League, which is with other local charter schools. It's a sports league that is based around like positive sporting behaviors as opposed to like intense competition, but it's a lot of fun. So we have a basketball team, a soccer team, and a flag football team, and that is certainly a program that will continue to grow. We are starting to develop our travel program last year. I think actually a year ago today is when we canceled our first international trip that was supposed to go to Costa Rica a year ago Saturday. Michael and I were supposed to take a group of 10 students to Costa Rica, and it just didn't happen. But we will continue to develop that program with both international and domestic travel opportunities. And finally, just a word about homework, because that's a hot button issue for a lot of middle school parents and for a lot of parents in general. In our younger grades, we don't really have homework at all, but as we get into the middle grades, we do recognize the value that homework can offer students in terms of developing their time management skills and their executive function, like decision making, prioritizing things. But we're intentional with our homework, just like everything else. We never assign busy work. It's always intentionally designed to support the learning that's happening in the classroom. And I think that is the last thing on my giant, huge list of things I'm talking about today. So I'm going to pass off to Molly Luplow, who has more awesome and amazing things about FernLeaf.
Thank you so much, Vic. All right. So as Nicole mentioned earlier, I'm just going to fill you in on some of the general information about our school. If you were here with me, we would be making our way down the hallways and peeking in classrooms, and I would just be sprinkling in this information as we went. But here we are. First, I'd like to talk about our school calendar, and there it is for you to take a look at right now. We like to think of our calendar as a hybrid format where we've sort of taken the best pieces of a traditional calendar and the best pieces of a year-round calendar and kind of squished them together to make a calendar that gives us some additional breaks. Our students come back a little bit earlier than some of our surrounding districts. We begin mid-August, but coming back a little bit earlier allows us to have a fall break in October. We still have that traditional 2 weeks off. During the holidays at the end of December. We have what some of us refer to as spring break junior in February, and then that more traditional spring break in March or April. And we also have our early releases on Fridays, where we dismiss at noon on Fridays. So coming back a little bit earlier gives us a little bit of flexibility to have those breaks, give our staff, students, and families some time to relax and prepare to jump back in when we come back in after we've had some vacation time. Our school day, Monday through Thursday, is 8 until 3 o'clock. I did mention we dismiss at noon on Fridays. This is a huge staff community building time for us. Teachers use this time for individual planning, planning with their teammates, planning between grade levels, committee work. We have staff meetings on Friday afternoons. We do a lot of professional development and group activities as well. So although our students head home at noon, we are still hard at work here, doing some of the behind the scenes important stuff that needs to get done. So students are welcome to arrive each day at 7:30. Our students begin their day outside. So for students who arrive between 7:30 and 7:50, they have the opportunity to get some fresh air, connect with their peers, maybe move around a little bit. If they have some energy they need to burn off before they come on in and get started for their day. We welcome our families to walk students in or walk students up to the school building. So starting at 7:45, parents are welcome to park and walk with their students. And it's really an amazing part of our day. Even some of our oldest students still have that opportunity to connect with their parent and begin their day in a really nice way. When the school day ends at 3, we have our after school program. So that program runs until 6 o'clock each day on Fridays from noon until 6. But we also offer a variety of classes. We have after school STEM, visual arts, and performing arts classes. And those are offered by our own staff members. We do bring in other outside organizations to provide classes in areas that we're not providing for students. So we've brought in Bricks for Kids before, soccer shots. We really look for any opportunity to give our students additional opportunities to pursue those unique passions and aptitudes even after the school day has ended. We also encourage our students and staff and parents to host clubs. So we've had foreign language clubs, yoga clubs, chess clubs, all sorts of different opportunities there with clubs. I know Vic talked a little bit about the Hospitality League, and of course those practices and games are happening after school for our older students. When it comes to lunch, we will be partnering with some local food providers next year to make sure we have a healthy lunch option available for all students. Students will still be welcome to bring their lunch from home. We do have a couple of rules about food at lunchtime or snack. We have a very strict no soda and no candy policy, and that is to just support our students in staying healthy and being ready to tackle their day. And next year, we'll also be offering pickup and drop-off locations in the Asheville and Hendersonville areas. All right. A lot of the things on my list have already been covered by other folks. So I'm just skipping down to the end to talk to you a little bit about open enrollment and our lottery. So right now we are wrapping up open enrollment here during the month of March. And what open enrollment is, it's a period of time where we accept applications for the next school year. Any applications that come in between January 1st and March 31st are entered into our lottery. And our lottery this year will be held on April 14th. So if you are considering applying to FernLeaf for your child for next year, I encourage you to do so soon, as our open enrollment period will end at the end of this month. And you will receive lots and lots of information about the lottery through that enrollment process. That is the information I have to share. Nicole, I'd like to hand it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Molly, for all of that amazing information. So it is basically our Q&A time now. I don't see any questions yet, so I'm going to talk for a minute and just kind of clean up what we haven't covered yet. So if you do have questions, please throw them in the little Q&A section down at the bottom there. But I just wanted to let you all know that I'm going to be following up with everyone tomorrow. If you missed any of the recording, I am recording this one so I can share this with you as well once I get this posted and all that stuff. So I'll be sharing that with y'all. And then Within the next couple weeks, I'm hoping to follow up with people too and just kind of give you more information if you feel like you still have any questions. We will give you a link to a Google form that will allow you to ask, like if you feel like you have really specific questions to your family's situation and you just are like, I don't really want to ask those at an open house, that is totally fine. So I'm going to send you out a link to a Google form that allows you to ask your questions privately, basically, and won't be answered out loud on a live open house. So you can ask your questions that way and we will get back to you within a day or two. Here is a question. Do you expect there to be a significant wait list for 6th grade this year? Would anyone like to field that one?
I can jump in and tackle that, Nicole. Define significant, I guess. So let me go backwards. We, at our kindergarten, we have the highest number of every year. We have the highest number of applicants and therefore the largest wait list. And this can be measured in the hundreds. And this then starts to get down lower and lower and lower a little bit each year as students become more settled where they are. Oftentimes they may not wish to make a change. But for this next year, I would anticipate having a waiting list for 6th grade. I'm just going to say somewhere in the ballpark of 20 students. We don't have our official numbers for the close of open enrollment yet because we're still several weeks out from that. But if I had a crystal ball and could guess, I would say that's where we're at. But I would encourage you to not allow that number to discourage you from applying because the lottery is just that. It is a lottery and there is always a chance that a slot becomes available and you can't, of course, get a slot if you don't apply. So please don't let any of those numbers discourage you and get that application in before March 31st, please.
Yeah, and Michael, isn't it true though too, like often you'll end up going through the wait list after the lottery happens. So maybe people decide to take a spot somewhere else. So even if you're on the wait list, there's a possibility that you could get in.
That is absolutely true, Nicole. And there are often times, as she said, where a family will apply for a variety of different charter schools. And so they, just because they were offered a slot doesn't mean they will. And so oftentimes we will move down that waiting list. And we continue to do that all the way through the summer. And then also through the first half of the school year. So if people move or their circumstances change, sometimes slots do become available even after the start of the next school year up until December 31st of each year.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Michael. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to throw them in there. Here comes another one. That was fast. The question is, what did you mean by drop-off points? I guess that's a Molly, that's the transportation.
Yes, so we will have spots where we'll have transportation vehicles that will be picking students up, most likely along the I-26 corridor in conveniently located spots, just to help ease that transportation burden, especially for some of our families that are driving in from pretty significant distances. We have students who are coming to us from Polk County and Haywood County, Transylvania County, although they're not along the I-26 corridor. We think of them when we think of folks who have significant drives ahead of them. But so the details have not been finalized for that, but that is our plan.
And I can add to that that we do not offer door-to-door service, and we would love to, but this is one of the things that is challenging for charter schools because we are not limited by geography from where our students come from. As Molly indicated, we have students that come from all over the region, and so it's just not feasible or practical for us to run bus routes to individual houses without the bus kids spending hours and upon hours on the bus. So we'll have, as she said, those conveniently located pickup and drop off points. And we will survey our families each year towards the middle or the end of the summer to find out who needs transportation. And basically what we'll do is import all of the addresses of people who are interested into a map that pops it all up, and we will find the most convenient locations we can based on the need.
Okay.
And Nicole, well, if there are other questions coming in, that's great. It's one of my favorite parts of the night. I can't wait to answer even more. But I do have a few other things that I would just love to sprinkle in that maybe didn't get covered over the course of the evening. So you just let me know when it's okay for me to sprinkle some of those in.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? There is one other question, but I'm wondering if it might be one that is more specific to this person and might need to be answered in person or over the phone or something. So why don't you go ahead first?
Fair enough. One of the things that I wanted to touch on is the preparation of our school program for high school and beyond. I mean, we have talked up left and right the strength of the academic program, the strength of the social and emotional learning program, and just the high quality people that we were able to raise through this program. And I just really wanted to take a minute to just highlight the fact that the goal is to set our students up not just for high school with us, but also high school anywhere that they may wish to attend. And so as a student that comes through our middle school program, we fully expect and see that sometimes our kiddos that have been with us from kindergarten through 7th and 8th grade, they may need a switch in life and to spread their wings a little bit beyond FernLeaf, and we support that. And I just want everybody to know that by following the standard course of study, those students are prepared not only academically to go to any other high school that they would like, but also are more than prepared based on some of what Vic and Lauren and Brian shared with you to be able to navigate that transition because of some of the social skills that they've developed and the deep-rooted human things that they've been able to establish over the years. So that was another piece I wanted to add. Also, a theme that kind of comes through a lot of what we're talking about is intentionality. I mean, Molly talked about the calendar, and I cannot tell you enough how intentional those breaks are for kids. We have collectively hundreds of years of experience working with students, and we know where kids need a break. We know where they hit a brick wall in the school year, and they have to be able to step back. And so those are precisely the places we placed those breaks. We also know, as she said, that things like project-based learning and really tying in all the curriculum, as Lauren described, requires an enormous amount of collaboration. And when teachers are teaching from 8 o'clock until 3 and have all of the other curriculum planning and regular planning and communication with parents in the hours before and after the school day, we were very intentional about that Friday afternoon being that time that they could do all of those extra things necessary to round out the experience and make it so much more than just delivering academic content. And that intentionality transfers over into things like our cell phone policy. This you wouldn't think about as being that big of a deal, but we do not allow cell phones at school. If a child has a need for one because of a family situation or something, they can clear it with me, and they're permitted to have it with them at the beginning and the end of the day. But there is not a single cell phone out at our school in any given day. And I can tell you, if you go to any area of school and look at the car line where everybody's getting picked up or they're waiting for the bus, 90% or more of the kids are on their phones, very often talking to the person 3 kids down from them. But instead of having a human interaction where they're engaging and developing those social skills, they're navigating it through their phone. And we quite frankly find that to be wrong and appalling. And it is easy for us to fix. And we have done so by having a strong cell phone policy. And so that's just another example of some of the intentionality that goes in. And another piece that I just wanted to frame with a word or a phrase for you, and I'm sure you're picking up on this already, but is comprehensive health and wellness. This is something that is critically important to us. And this is why we have a mindfulness program. This is why we place the emphasis on social and emotional learning. It is why when we talk about food, we don't have sodas, cookies, and candy and things like that here. We also don't have classroom parties on a monthly basis where we're bringing in all the extra cookies and candy and things like that. It's important for us to teach students what healthy eating looks like, what it means to take care of your body, what it means to get adequate rest, what it means to get adequate physical activity. And all of that is tied into comprehensive health and wellness. And I just wanted to offer that phrase as kind of a summary for a lot of the little pieces that we threw at you tonight. And that's all I've got on that front, Nicole, if you want to.
Okay.
push it back to any other questions, but we're happy
Yeah,
to.
well, why don't I throw this out there and see what you think, if you want to answer it here or not. So their question is if our child has an IEP currently, what kind of transition should we anticipate?
Molly, I'll start this, but I would like you to follow up if I miss anything. One of the things that is fantastic, we have one of the finest EC programs on the planet, and that is, did I mention the high quality of our teachers? And that is because of the high quality of our EC team. It is unbelievable, but it's also out of an overarching belief that all students have a place at FernLeaf and that we can support students in innumerable ways. So what we do right out of the gate when a student comes to us with an IEP is we first take a close look at the IEP, but our EC coordinator then sets up a meeting with that family long before school even starts, so that we can meet with the family, find out what has worked for them at other schools, what hasn't worked for them, what they would like to see different, what does the student need to help make a smooth transition. And depending on what their needs are, sometimes it's an easy switch, but sometimes we have to really take it slow and help them intentionally. And it is not uncommon in the weeks leading up to school and even the entire summer where we will set up times for students to come visit the campus throughout the summer, just in small doses, just to come in and meet Carrie in the front office, to walk around the campus and get a feel for the layout, to come in and sit down and have a conversation with me, and to meet some of the teachers in passing as they're getting their room set up throughout the year. So while I can't speak to any specific situation, I hope I've given you a little bit of a flavor for the overarching intentional approach and warm and considerate approach that we take to that. And Molly, feel free to jump in if I have missed anything there.
I can't really think of anything to add. You described an amazing transition for a student, for any student. But you know, sort of the bottom line is your student's IEP follows them wherever they go. And I think what stands out in what Michael said is that our amazing EC team just really takes a lot of care and effort to make sure that that every student's transition into FernLeaf is an amazing one.
Okay.
And we also work really hard, and I'm glad Molly said this for all students, right? And so this is true of whether you have an IEP or not, but we work very hard to roll all of our new students into the fabric of our community. And so even though many of our students have been together from kindergarten on up, it is not hard. And I think Vic and Lauren could comment on this. When a new student comes in, the existing students are incredibly welcoming and work really hard to help them get acclimated and to find their way. And that's not always the case with middle school students. And again, I think that speaks to Lauren's point of the type of children that we are helping to create while they're here, and the skills that we're helping them to develop really support all of those kids as well.
Yes, I can attest to that. I also have a sixth grader here, and I am always surprised at how thoughtful he can, you know, a 12-year-old boy you don't think is very thoughtful or considerate, but he really is. So I can attest to that. Yes, so they said, perfect, thank you, we're excited. So I think you answered their question well, Michael and Molly. So, okay, I think we nailed all the questions. The last thing I want to say, and then we'll let Michael kind of clean it up here, is that in your little enrollment packet, there is like the application process is on here. It's not complicated. You've probably already figured it out. But if you hadn't, all the stuff is in here. And our administrative assistant, Carrie, who is amazing and can answer a lot of your questions on this, her phone number is on here. So if you need anything, you can always call her. And you can always email me too, because I will be emailing you tomorrow with follow-ups and all that stuff. So I think that's all I have, Michael. Did you want to wrap it up?
I would love to. First, I just want to say thank you for your interest in FernLeaf in the first place. And thank you for your commitment to your child by investigating schools for them. You should pat yourself lightly on the back for that. It means a lot when parents take the extra step to find the right place for their kid and to make sure that it's the type of community that they want to be a part of, and it has the things that they need and believe are important for their children as well. So nicely done. Kudos to you. And thank you also to our staff for giving even more of their time as we are about to make the transition to some in-person learning starting next week. There's a lot on everybody's plate. So guys, I just wanted to say thank you very much for committing time for prospective families. It's very gracious of you. And all of that said, when we do typical in-person tours, my wish is that everyone who comes walks away with a feeling of who FernLeaf is, the types of things we have to offer, and what the experience is like. And you are normally able to get that by just being here. I don't even have to say anything. You can just see it in the kids' eyes as they walk up and down the hallways. You can feel it coming out of the classrooms. You can hear it in the teachers' voices. And while we haven't been able to offer you that, I hope that we've been able to offer you something that gives you that little bit of a feeling of what a remarkable place FernLeaf is. And we built this school out of a deep commitment and passion to kids and to their families. And there really are wonderful things happening in our hallways all day, every day. And we can't wait for you to be a part of it. Thank you so much for coming out, everybody. We hope you have a great evening and hope to see you in person soon. Take care.
Bye, y'all.